Hi, my name's Gareth Westwood, Managing Director of Quietly Confident Technology. Welcome to QCT Talks Tech. Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how I go about reinstalling a computer with Windows 10 using an image that I've created previously using a virtual machine, sysprep and Clonezilla. So you're going to need a few things. First and most important is probably a nice cup of coffee. I've then got a USB memory stick. This is nothing particularly special. This is just an 8 gig memory stick with a tag on it so I know what's on there so I don't forget. That's got Clonezilla on. And Clonezilla is the program that we're going to use to take the image from an external hard drive. So we're going to take the image from this and drop it onto the internal hard drive on the PC. So that external hard drive is just a standard Western Digital's external hard drive. It's 2 terabyte. It's a USB 3. So a definite important thing to note here is if you are restoring an image, firstly, buy an SSD for the computer if there isn't one in there, because while you're doing this job you might as well. Second thing is make sure you plug the external hard drive into a USB 3 socket. USB 3 onto a SSD is going to absolutely fly through. The memory stick that's got Clonezilla on, doesn't really matter where you plug that in, because that's, it's going to take a little longer to boot maybe, but once it's up you're not going to notice any difference there. But make sure you've got the external hard drive in a USB 3 socket, because that will massively speed this job up. Right, so if I switch over to the computer now, and there we are. Okay, so we're going to start this up. This is a HP machine, so I happen to know from previous battles with these machines that it's F9 to get to the boot menu. Hopefully we are going to get there. There we go. Again, an important thing just to note here is you can see at the top there we've got UEFI boot sources. A little bit lower down we've got legacy boot sources. Now, because of the way that I've done this Windows 10 image, if you don't see UEFI boot sources, Windows 10 is not going to boot once you've done the image. So I can see that there. That's good news. We can boot from the external disk, and we see Grub there, and we're going to load the top one there, which is Clonezilla Live. And that'll take a few seconds just to boot up now. And then we'll get some messages up on screen just about the language and that sort of stuff. But just bear with me for a second. I'll fast forward this while it just loads up. Okay, so there we are. We are at the language selection screen there. I am English, so I'll take English. I am actually in the UK, but I'll leave the keyboard layout at US because it doesn't really matter to me. And we are going to start Clonezilla. Okay, now this menu gives you a few little options. Now, because I'm working with a local disk that's physically plugged into the machine, and because I want to work with an image that's on that disk copying to a device, I want to go with device to image. Or device image. Yeah, because I'm taking something from the device, an image from the device, and putting it onto a device. Sorry, get my words out straight. So, and this is the screen that I thought I was on a second ago, which is where I got myself confused. This is also a local device. So because the image that I have is on a locally connected hard drive, we're going to select local device. Obviously, maybe I'll go through at some point and do a video on some of those other options. An SSH server, Samba, via a web server, the whole lot of options there that you can use to actually load the image. I'm going local because it's faster. Okay, now we're going to get to the point where it enumerates all the devices that are plugged into the system and asks you which one you want to use as your image source. So we hit enter, we get a nice black screen, and it lists all the disks there. Sometimes it can take a little while for it to actually enumerate all the devices that are plugged in. So sometimes it can take a little while for that to come up. Okay, so you can see there that we've got the SanDisk, which is the internal hard drive on this machine, and we've got the WD Elements, which is the external hard drive. Now, interestingly, it doesn't show the memory stick that you booted from here. Bear that in mind. I'm not sure why. I'm sure it probably could, but it doesn't show it. So don't think that you can have your Clonezilla install and your image on the same memory stick. That doesn't seem to work. You may know a way to make that work. If you do, please comment below. Mention it, because I'd be interested to see how we do that. So anyway, it's loaded those. We know that we're on SDC. We press Control C to move on to the next menu. And having identified the drives, we now select the one that we want. So in my case, it's that bottom one, SDC petition 1, which is a 1.8 terabyte NTFS petition. It's now going to list everything that's in there. So you can see the two images that I've been using generally are these two at the bottom here. So there's a Windows 10 image, which is 1903, and there's a Windows 7 image, which was, you know, up to date as of well, July, I guess, looking at the date stamps there. So obviously we're not really installing Windows 7 anymore, so I'm going for the Windows 10 one. But what this is doing at the moment is this is just selecting the directory that it's going to load the image files from. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Tab twice to get onto Done, and then hit Space to select that directory as the one where the images are. Enter to confirm. Now, you've got beginner and expert here. I'm going to select expert because there's something that I just want to show you, which I don't think you get to if you go to beginner. But if all you're doing is dumping one image onto one disk and you're not worried about the size of the resulting partitions, then just use beginner. That's absolutely fine. If you've got a potential issue where the source disk that you made the image from is smaller or larger than the destination disk that you're going to dump the image to, you need to select expert, and I'll show you the setting that you need to make sure is ticked under expert for that when I get there. But yeah, if you're not bothered, you know, if you've done it on a 120 gig virtual disk and all of your hard drives are 120 or more, and you're not bothered about the system accessing more than 120 gig of the hard drive, then you don't need to worry. Alternatively, you could just go through it and then use something like gparted to resize the partitions afterwards if you want, but that's an additional step. You can do it straight from here. So yeah, so we'll go with expert, and so these are the options for what you're actually going to do. We are going to restore disk. So if you look at the description there, restore an image to a local disk. That's what we want to do. I've got a Windows 10 image, I want it on the local disk. You could restore an individual partition, that's the next one down, and obviously when you're making an image, you'd select one of the two top options. Again, generally I go with save disk. You know, do the whole thing because then you get the boot sectors and everything as well. But yeah, we are restoring a disk from an image. Well, we then get to pick which of the two images that are on that disk we want. Obviously, if you had more images on there, you would have more things to choose from. You may, for example, want to have a customer-specific build. So you might have a Windows 10 clean image that you use as a base, but then customize it for specific customers with the software that they use, with their license keys if they're individually licensed, something like that. But for what I'm doing, for the time being, I just have the one standard Windows 10 image. So again, enter to select that. Where's it going? There's only the one option, which is good news. So it's going to the internal 400 gig SanDisk SSD. Okay, now this is the screen with a few more of the options on. I'm going to basically ignore most of them because they're just doing what you want. But the one I wanted to highlight was this one here, which is, if you're doing it from the command line, it's a -R. We're not. We're using the GUI. But you'll read it says, try to resize the file system to fit the partition size. That's the option that if you just go with the basic setup, it doesn't do this for you. So, enter to continue. This is where you get to make the selection about what you want it to do. Now again, I almost always go with -K1 there, which is create partition table proportionally. Now, technically that's going to mean that you do get, so the couple of partitions that Windows 10 has at the start of the disk, which are to help boot and for the UEFI partition, they're going to end up being slightly larger than they absolutely need to be. But realistically, you know, we're talking about a couple of meg here and there, which is, you know, nothing with modern hard drives. So -K1, create partition table proportionally. Do you want to check the image before restoring? I always go with yes. I would rather find out that an image is broken before it's halfway through copying onto the disk rather than halfway. Call me old-fashioned. Again, I've been on site, I've been doing this on site where the image has failed for some reason. You know, probably been unplugging the drive without unmounting it properly or something like that. But anyway, I've got to do it on a client's machine, and the check has failed. But the check has failed before I've wiped the client's machine. So that meant that I could just turn it off, pull the external drives out, boot it up again. They were back at their system as it was before I touched it without any problems. If I hadn't done it that way round, I'd have had a balked machine, I'd have had an upset customer, and I'd have had to find a solution to the problem immediately. Rather than the way I did it, it meant that I could come back to the workshop, work out what was wrong, restore the image from a backup that I had of it, and then I'm actually going to go back to see that customer tomorrow, and I'm going to start the process again. So yes, check the image before restoring. And then what do you want to do when it's finished? Again, my general logic here is that I go with choose what you want to do, because that does mean that you can just have a quick check through the messages that appear at the end of the restore job, and you can just see what's going on. You might want to shut down, you might want to reboot. It's kind of up to you. If you reboot, this is kind of useful if you're doing it a little bit unattended. You could set it to reboot, walk away, once you've pressed Y a few times. There's a few Ys to get it started. And then when it's finished dumping the image, it reboots. Windows 10 is probably going to be the first boot thing at that point. So it's going to start enumerating all the devices. You're going to be at 10 or 15 minutes further along than if you didn't. That said, I prefer to see if there have been any errors and what the errors have been, so I leave it on reboot, shutdown. Sorry, choose whether to reboot or shut down. It gives you a copy of the command that it's going to run. So if you wanted to, you could just boot to the command line. You could run this command, and you've got your new machine sorted. I just go through the GUI. It doesn't take long, particularly not when you're like talking it all through in your head and saying it to the camera. Anyway, so there's the command. Enter to continue. So it's now doing the test. I'm going to grab a cup of coffee or slurp my cup of coffee, and we'll fast forward this bit. It's just going to go through, check all the partitions, make sure that they're okay, and then give us some more options. Okay, so it's finished scanning through the disk. It's about a 20 gig image, and it's just taken a couple of 3 minutes there to check it through. Again, it's on USB 3, super fast, love it. Okay, so if you read through what it's saying on screen there, check successful, the image of this partition is restorable. So it's gone through, quite happy, got everything. At the bottom, press enter to continue. So we'll do that. It's then going through, what it's just doing there is, because the label of the hard drive that the image was made on is different to the label of the hard drive that it's restoring to now, it just does a little bit of working that out there, and then says, are you sure you're about to overwrite? Yes, I'm sure. And then it says, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And then it starts restoring the image. Okay, again, it's going to do the UEFI and the Windows boot petition first. They're the first couple of screens that you're going to see, and then it will start doing the actual data, the main system petition. So there's 1 and 2. .14 seconds, I think that was then. Sorry, there's 3 that it does first, then on to the main event. My bad. Okay, so again, I'm going to just wander off and leave this, just let it do its thing. But you can see the elapsed and the time remaining there, it's still thinking it's going to be 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes to restore 20 gig of data and have a system that's bootable. It's just brilliant. But yeah, I'll leave that. I'll fast forward this a little bit because you don't want to just stand here and watch that copying away. I mean, you probably don't. So yeah, I'll speed that up a little bit for you. See you back here in a second. Okay, so that's all gone through. We are at the end screen here, so everything's gone well. We're at the what do you want to do screen. Now we can choose some of the options here. So this is kind of useful if you run a check. So there are ways that you can go through and check the image independently from restoring it, or you can redump the image. So if you've captured an image, you get to the end, you get this option where you can rerun with different conditions. I don't use it a huge amount, but it is useful sometimes. If you just want to do a bit of testing, you want to do a couple of test restores just to see how quickly things happen, this can be useful. Just thought I'd mention that that's there. But anyway, I'm going to go for power off. I'm going to pull the drives out, and then we'll see the system boot up into Windows 7. No, into Windows 10, not 7. And we'll just, watch through that. Basically, I'll just click through until we get to the desktop, I think, and then we'll leave the video there. So that's shut down. So external disk and memory stick out. Power up. I'm not going to press anything because hopefully it's going to pick the internal hard drive by default. It has. Again, a few of these screens just take a little while, so I might just fast forward or cut through a few bits. So if I go a bit jumpy, that'll be why. Yep, so Windows is starting to identify all the new hardware, or what it thinks is new hardware, because it's been cleared out. Yep, using sysprep. So it's identifying all the new hardware and getting the system ready. Okay, finished the first round, so it's now restarting the system. Just a moment. I'm not sure how long Microsoft think a moment is, but I think it's a little bit longer than I think a moment is. Okay, start with the region. United Kingdom for me. The keyboard layout, United Kingdom, was a reasonable bet. Don't need to add any additional keyboard layouts, so we'll skip that. Now has some important setting up to do. The previous setting up was not important. This setting up is important. Okay, end user license agreement. Yep, read that. Okay, now this is the first sort of question that we really need to think about. Are you setting this up for personal use or for an organisation? Generally speaking, I'm setting up for an organisation, but just to make this easier, I'm going to say I'm setting this up for personal use, basically because I don't want to use any actual real-life credentials to sign in. I might do a separate video on that and set up a separate Office 365 account to do that with, but for now we'll go setting up for personal use. Sign in with your Microsoft account. I do not want to sign into my Microsoft account. Part of the reason that I'm doing this way around is that it's an offline account, so I know I can always get into this machine. Now, there is a user that's already configured on the system that I haven't removed with sysprep, so I can still get in if I absolutely had to. But I'm still going to go with creating an offline account. It's going to say, oh, but really? And I'm going to say, limited experience, because they really want you to go for the online account. You don't want a limited experience, do you? Yes, yes I do. Who's going to use this computer? Gareth W. That's me. And you still see down the bottom left hand side here, or even better, use an online account. No. Enter a password. There's a password. Confirm the password. And this begins to grate on me a little bit now. Enter security question. What's your pet's first name? My pet's, or your first pet's name, sorry, not your pet's first name. My first pet was called Password1 with a capital P. Security question 2. What city was I born in? Would you believe I was born in Password1? And I mean, this is amazing. What did people call me? People used to know me as Password1. I don't get it. Do you want to do more across multiple devices with history? No, I don't. Would I like a digital assistant? This is an admin account, so no, I wouldn't. Do I want to use speech recognition? No. Do I want to be able to be tracked? No. Do I want to find my device? Now, if I was setting this up with an Office 365 account using Azure AD, I would probably go, yes, please find my device. I'm not. It's not. So I'm not. No. Diagnostic data. I always tend to go full here. I kind of figure that you're helping Microsoft out a little bit, and you know, maybe you're going to help make Windows better by sending that diagnostic information. I might be way out. I might be, you know, wishful thinking, but I still would go for that anyway. Improve inking and typing. No, I'm not going to go for that. Tailored experiences with diagnostics data. No. Advertising ID. No. We don't want any of that. I just want Windows. Hi. We're getting things ready for you. Things are ready. Oh no, still going. Okay, and we are about there. Now, interestingly, obviously the way I'm recording the screen on this, I have an actual screen set up which is just next to the camera here, and I've also got the second output on the PC plugged into a capture card into my laptop. Now, what it's actually done is Windows has decided that it should duplicate the screen, so I'm just going to go with Windows key and P. And sorry, give me a sec. I just need to. Yay! And we'll just duplicate the screens. Now, obviously, that's just affected how it looks on the capture card there, but it does mean that I can at least see what's going on. So, I mean, realistically, that's pretty much everything done now. You know, the first things that I'm going to do, I'm going to click on most of these desktop shortcuts, and I'm going to delete them. You know, Edge because why? You can see from looking at the start menu, I've been through and I've cleared out. So I've got a little script that removes all the crud from the start menu. So that's all gone. There's a few things that I've then installed. So Foxit Reader, Google Chrome. I think that's about it. Oh, VLC's on here as well. Start menu is nice and clear. Last thing, I guess, before finishing off is that first thing to do after imaging the machine is just to go to settings and go to updates and check for updates. Doesn't matter how recently you've done that image, there's likely to be a couple of updates, so go grab them. That will also go and grab all the device drivers for everything that's required. I'm having real good success with Windows 10 so far without really having to manually go and install any drivers. It's an absolute godsend as far as I'm concerned. I do have drivers on that external disk, so if I do need any of the drivers, but generally, worst case, you put the network card in, then you tell it to go find, and it just gets the rest. So that's good. Obviously, if you're running some sort of gaming rig or you're doing CAD work, you would probably want to go to the ATI or the NVIDIA websites to go and get the absolute latest proper full spec drivers, not trust the Windows one. But yeah, so that's about it. That's all there is to it, he says. I will do a video on getting Clonezilla up and running on a memory stick. I will also do a video on building an image for Windows 10, probably using VirtualBox. Yes, and as soon as they're done, I will link to those on this video. But other than that, I think we're about there. I will call this one there. Thank you very much. Hey, thanks for watching to the end of the video. If you've got any questions or comments or would like to suggest other videos for us to produce, please put them in the comment section below. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so, that way you'll get notifications when we upload new videos. And if you'd like to contact QCT about help with any of your IT conundrums, then you can find us at www.qctech.co.uk. Thanks very much, see you soon.